Hey guys, Sean, Blessed Liver Dummies, Salt Supply S2. I have modified the air valve to accept an FSC pin. Be warned, this is a proof of concept, an earliest of prototypes. So I had two extra pins kicking around. Well, I got a bunch of extra pins kicking around, but I had a short pin from ZRAM and a long, just a standard length FSC pin. So full disclosure, the marker that I'm going to test right now has a wide open restrictor. So this is my original one that I drilled completely through and it auto fired. And the reason why it's on this marker is, well, I don't want to ruin my good, perfectly functioning S2. So I have to start with this one. So I've installed a ball bearing CO2 restrictor. And I'm using the short pin on this bolt. I'll test fire it. Then I'm gonna swap to the long pin. You're gonna get to see that first here, and I'll go through what I, I did to make this fitment. I will be using a Grimberg Jewel V2s. So these are 8 grams. $266. 258. 252. 244. 238. That's all of them. Well, that was not my best 5 shots, but nevertheless, I think that is a higher average than I was seeing with just a standard valve pin, firing pin, sorry. And we'll get into why maybe there's an alternate method. So let's peel this thing open.
All right, guys, excuse the mess. My table this is not like me. But here is the Salt Supply S2 opened up. Now, if you want to see a detailed disassembly and reassembly, I do have a video up. So this isn't going to be that. So factory bolt spring, factory bolt, but it has a ZRAM short pin in there. So how did I get it to fit in this valve? Well, I removed the back cap. I unscrewed this brass tip here. I removed the O-ring out of here. So that's a red or a green O-ring. I think it's green in the tip here. And I drilled, and I used a cordless electric drill. If I did this again, and if I'm doing this once I perfect this, I'm going to use the drill press. Aluminum's soft, so when I was hand drilling, it bit hard, and it wanted to rip this thing out of my hand, and then the drill bit just ran right into the aluminum, went through so fast. I was like, whoa, tug of war with it, but it worked out in the end. So I drilled 3/8 of an inch straight through this valve. That was based on, I put my micrometer on one of these pins, and the closest drill bit size that I had was an Imperial. So that's the easy part. Now the pin fits. Let's just take one of these out of here. I have no idea what that is. There is the Salt Supply pin, and there is the FSC pin. Now you can see that the stock Salt Supply pin is shorter. than this particular pin, but it's the diameter that's different. So how did I get this to seal in there? Well, additionally, when I drilled through this, I also drilled through this brass cap here. So I did the same, drilled 3/8 through, and then I used a countersink, and I just countersunk the edge here a little bit. I don't know if you can pick that up. Not really. But there is. Yeah, there you go. You can see a little bit, just so it wasn't such a sharp edge. And then I used the good old Milsig Vulcan M17 O-ring. I put it on a wooden dowel, like this. I turned my angle grinder on and I literally just spun it and ground the outside edge down until it fit inside here. So yes, this has a Milsig O-ring in it. Vulcan O-ring, sorry. Milsig no longer exists. Well, not on this side of the water. So that is good to go. That's your seal. Oh yeah, I was gonna demonstrate the size. So I drilled this 3/8. There you go. You can see it probably could have been a little tighter. But here's the thing. So you don't want it quite exact either, because you want this pin, like you can see a little bit of meat of that O-ring sticking out. So when this pin goes through, you don't want to be metal on metal. You want to be metal on O-ring. So if I drilled this exact, then I'd just be scraping the sides here. You don't want to scrape the sides. All right, and then, well, getting the pin in my bolt. Again, this isn't a how-to, guys, but do as you will. I use a 632, and let me get an Allen key here. 632 by half. Button head, no, not that one. Oh, there we go. What was I saying? 632 by half, button head, socket cap. Nobody ever believes me, but this is a hardened alloy, 12.9 grade. These things do not break. This is the same one that I use in my FSC. You might suspect this dome might cause some interference with shaped rounds. I haven't found that the case. Many shaped rounds have a hollow back anyways. Having a head on this end, this is a double shear fastening. What this offers is 2 clamping forces. It will reduce the chances of this pin ever backing out. And in my FSC, it is proven without fault. I have not broken another firing pin. But this bolt is metric. Well, because this is just a slap it together and make sure it works kind of thing, I thought, well, this is 4mm thread in here. It just so happens that without running a tap or anything through, this at least bites some threads. And as you saw, it works. You can see I can actually tighten that up. So it worked out perfect. I didn't have to tap this or anything. So a 632 by half button head tucks in there nicely, leaves plenty of meat. It could probably go longer, but in this case, well, I just used what I had on hand. Maybe a 5/8 would get more meat into this pin. And that is about it. I didn't even Loctite it. And I put about, I don't know, maybe 6-7 mags through, and that was still tight. So let's just so I'm gonna put the factory length ZRAM pin on. The test fire you just saw was the short pin right there. There it is. We can have a good comparison. So The short Z-Ram pin is almost identical in length, and omit this threaded part. So this is where they would both butt up here. They're almost identical in length. So that short pin worked out really well. There might be a use for these after all. But we're gonna put in the long pin and see what it does to the marker. Will it cut my power? Will it allow me to run wide open with no ball bearing? I'm thinking it might, because it's gonna, longer this pin, it's gonna shorten the amount of time that valve is open. So it's gonna shorten the release of air, but the pressure is still gonna remain the same. And if you saw in that quick video there, the quick little shootout, a lot of CO2 is coming out at the end, which means I am being wasteful. So let's see what this does. I'll reinstall it. I'm not gonna torture you putting the whole marker back together.
Here we go. It's either a yay or a nay. So this is the factory length FSC firing pin in here. And I'm going for broke. This is wide open, so no ball bearing, no restriction. Wide open, as it sounds. Ow! 8-gram Joule V2s, of course. .268, and an auto fire. So I was wrong. You guys can see down there. Not really. Take my word for it, it's wide open. So I'm gonna drop this little ball bearing in there. Acts as a restrictor. New CO2. A little dab of lube. Sufficiently warmed up. Ball bearing CO2 restrictor in place. Did I even hit that or not? There we go. That might be a small prick. Well, that was comical. Well, you know what? Before I do that, let's eject that mag. First couple of shots there, it didn't reset properly. I don't know why that is. Is that just a, oh, look at that. I don't know, I'm gonna try this again. Oh, I dropped my ball bearing. Look at that. Whoop. I think that might have actually been the problem. I think my puncture wasn't good enough and the marker was starving for air. Do-over. Let's try that again. The puncture on the first try. I haven't hit that really hard. This is a new batch Crossman's. But that was the first issue I've had with this. So, JV2s, ball bearing in place. FSC factory pin. It still stuttered. 262. But I didn't shoot all the balls that time. Shooting 2 at once though. And that's it. What happened? I heard the bolt reset. It seems the bolt got stuck forward. And another ball fell out. I'm gonna say this long pin is not working. That was a good puncture. It is causing some sort of grief. But that's not to say it is not usable. because I can play with the spring lengths. And of course, you guys, this opens up a whole huge possibilities here of different things that I can try now against that firing pin. And well, stuff like that takes time. My bag of springs did come in for my other salt. So it's a work in progress. The short pin does work though, but ball bearing. I'm dropping everything today. Short pin does work. I don't know how available those are anymore. I just happen to have one. But I do want to talk about maybe that extra power is coming from drilling through, and I've expanded the volume of the chamber. Now, could you drill this valve through to almost the factory O-ring? So you need to have some meat behind, where did the day meet? You need to have some material behind that O-ring to keep it clamped in place. So if you drilled right through the O-ring section, you're gonna find that the air is probably gonna pick that O-ring up and tear it out. So if you drilled short of it, I mean, you're technically increasing the volume, but then I'm not sure if that smaller factory pin is big enough to let out that extra amount of air in the designated time it has of this setup. Remember, that bolt can only open for so long based on your bolt spring and your stop. So even though you put more air in, it's not necessarily going to get you more power. Not with CO2 anyways. That may transfer over to the Umarex markers. I'm going to have to look into that more. I do have one extra spare salt valve. I don't know if I want to drill that one though. Maybe I'm going to attempt to just do what I just said and not drill all the way through, keep the factory pin intact and all that jazz, and see what happens. How would this perform with the factory restriction in place? It might perform just perfectly, and this might be the end all be all, but I'm not ready to ruin that. I've ruined my good valve. And my other valve, unfortunately, I did drill a restrictor, so. Guys, it's a battle of how much money I want to waste.